Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is James Duggan, and welcome to IGN Plays. I am here with Philip Asher and Brad Logston of Trendy, and they are going to show us Dungeon Defenders 2, which has been in early access on Steam for some time and is coming to PlayStation 4 quite soon. That is coming on the 29th of September, so we're very excited for that.
Really soon.
Some problems with PSN right now. Hopefully the entire internet doesn't go down because you won't be able to see our pretty faces. So what are we doing right here? We're in a private tavern. We're just messing around with some totems or some
towers.
Some towers.
Just checking them out, seeing what my DPS is.
So
You said your favorite tower is Earthshatter Tower. So
yes, I love it.
It's
Let me look at it. It's gorgeous. And the giant crystal spike comes out of the ground. So if you guys don't know about this game, it is a tower defense game. You play as a class. It's the second Dungeon Defenders.
That's right.
We all remember the first. Yes, yes. The 2 isn't just thrown on there for giggles.
Someone should do that one day. They should make a game and just call it,
the sequel.
you know, game of whatever the second.
Well, George Lucas
like
did it with Star Wars in the
right.
70s. Okay, so we're going to be taking questions on Twitter. If you tweet at IGN with a hashtag IGNPlaysLive, you can ask these fine gentlemen all your questions about the game, whether you're new or you're a total veteran, and you're going to ask those balanced questions that you were dying to know about. And I have some myself, so.
Oh, perfect.
Why don't we jump into a game here?
Hold on, I need to look.
Oh, you need to look like a boss.
That's right.
Yeah, just making sure, really quick.
He's decking himself out with all the cool visuals.
So,
got everyone.
Some people who've played this game have called it a pseudo-MMO. And I would go far enough to say it's almost a full-fledged MMO. It's a very social game. It's a game you play with your friends. It's up to 4-player co-op, right?
That's right.
And eventually there's going to be PvP. Maybe.
One day we'll have PvP. Yeah, it's down the road. You know, not to go too far onto a tangent, but we did this. We have this thing called the influence system, where players can earn points by logging in every day and using those points to vote on different questions we have to the community. And we did this really cool event about 2 months ago, where everyone in the studio stopped working on what they were working on, like pencils down, and you could work on any fun project they wanted to. There was no restrictions. You could do anything you wanted. So people were getting into small groups of 1 or 2 people, you know, whatever size. And one team, 10 people, actually built a PvP prototype.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you go to our website, DungeonDefenders2.com, I think is right.
Yeah.
And you go into the influence system, you can actually take a look and watch a video of this. Really rough. It was like something hacked together in a week with like 7 or 10 people. But it is Dungeon Defenders 2 PvP. So yeah, that's something we're going to get into down the road. Right now, for the foreseeable future, we're really focused on just the co-op experience because we think that's a really fun, unique game experience in of itself. But that will be there one day.
Well, you should play this with your friends. It's not necessary. You can play this by yourself. You can get, so basically you were getting these mana gems. The green mana is for spending on turrets. The blue mana is for spending on abilities.
Yeah.
And based upon your character's builds, items, pets, stuff like that, you're going to be better at certain things than others. So we see right now you're switching in your character deck to the Squire, making some walls. So why don't you just give us a rundown of why the character deck, in the first game you could switch between all of the classes. Was that just a little bit overwhelming?
Oh man. So I find it very, it feels like you've been reading our forums lately. Like the very first question you ask is about the hero.
These are all from up here, I promise.
See, that's because, he told us before the stream he actually is a DD2 player, so you've spent some time on it. The hero deck's purpose when we created it was really, the big reason was that back when DD1 was out there, we got a lot of feedback from people coming into a game with, public games, and someone has all the characters maxed out with every single type of build you could imagine. It's like they have the character with all the DPS stats, they have the character with every single build stat maxed out, and they would sit there and go, you know what, nope, I got this. I have 16 heroes, you sit back and I'll build everything. And when you were playing publicly, in kind of social matches, that wasn't really fun because there wasn't really a lot of chance for all the players to participate. So we wanted to create a little bit of a restriction in a way that, you know what, you have to make a good choice on the kind of characters you want to bring to the game and what, stats and what kind of items you want to have on them. And then, that was what you could bring. And originally it was 3 slots. We expanded it to 4. We've been having a lot of dialogue with our community right now. And, we understand a lot of people are commenting. There's kind of a split preference in our community. There's a certain group of people that are really like, you know what, remove it. I want to bring all the heroes. I want to be able to do everything. And there's another group of people that are like, actually, we like the hero deck. And it's funny, they like it not just because it allows a little bit better of a communal play and public matches, but they also like it because it adds strategic depth. You have to actually choose what kind of strategies you want to employ. You can't just bring all the strategies. So,
you know which one I am? I like it. I really like it a lot. In fact,
cool.
It was one of my favorite features as soon as I booted it up because while all of the min-maxers and hardcore players, which I definitely associate myself with, love that kind of thing. To a point, it's just overwhelming, especially when you come back. There's a bunch of classes you haven't played.
Yeah.
So the hero deck definitely gives you a little bit, while you still get to have that experience of I'm going to set up with this character and fight with this character and build walls with this character, which is a great experience. It's not just completely overwhelming, because that was, I think, kind of the case.
Yes, we agree. And right now we're taking a lot of, I just made a really long post on this very traveled thread about the hero deck and different people's opinions on it. And there are probably going to be other modifications making it down the road. We've talked about ideas of maybe if you're playing completely solo, we had a little more flexibility than when you're playing in public, and we'll see how that goes. But it's really kind of exciting to hear that other side of the coin, because sometimes
it just feels more fleshed out. I think it was an interesting concept in the beginning, but I'm not sure you guys knew you were going to make that many character classes. But speaking of character classes, there's 4 in the game right now. There's the monk, the squire, the apprentice, and the huntress, which were the 4 launch characters from Dungeon Defenders 1. But I have a feeling there's probably going to be some more. So
no, we're done.
It's over.
That's
Game's done. Pre-alpha. Gold copy right there. Gold standard. So tell us about what's coming down the line and what some of your favorite ideas are.
We had a lot of fun characters that we've messed around with. Some characters that were from DD1 that people were fan favorites. We hear a lot of people asking for the summoner. We do hear a lot of comments about wanting Eevee back. That's really common. And we understand why everyone loved Eevee. The buff beams were a thing. We have a lot of other ideas we experimented with. We actually did kick off, they're in prototype phase, so they're not anywhere close to release, but we did kick off 2 hero prototypes at one point that are not in the current lineup.
Very cool.
Without going into too many spoiler details, one of them had a very unique weapon equipment setup that no other character had at this point. We actually built the prototype system around that. Can I just say it? Do you care? I take my marketing.
I'm not even paying attention. I'm just playing.
Just say it. He's not even what? What's going on?
We actually had a dual wielding class.
Wow.
Yeah, that we were messing with, and we prototyped it out, and you could sit there and hold 2 weapons, and the types of weapon that you had would change the way that they attacked it.
That is awesome.
We did an experiment about actually having it change what your abilities did, but that became a little bit too heavy.
A little crazy.
Engineering work. But yeah, there was some really cool ideas we were throwing around. When it came down to it, though, we put them on the back burner because we really wanted to add the depth into DD2 that we're working on right now. I mean, you've seen some of these major patches that we've done, and even now, actually, we have a patch coming out in about 2-ish weeks or so, and we're doing another huge update to the way characters level. We're doing weapon variety, actually, which is a big topic. We announced that last week on our dev stream. Yeah.
I totally have not heard about that.
Yeah.
That's very exciting.
We just announced it on Friday, last Friday, and basically, in DD1, you had you'd get a projectile weapons that shot different, like 4
right, or like an M16. That was like the first good gun for the Huntress when you max leveled.
And for the melee characters, you'd have weapons that attacked at different speeds, and so you had like ones that attacked really, really fast and did low damage, or really, really slow and did really high damage. So we just are finishing up our first pass of weapon variety. It's really, really cool. So you're going to get things like an apprentice staff that's like a shotgun, and it does like a spread
attack. Am I going to be able to
or
dual wield shields? That's my only question as a squire. I'm sure that I'm not the first person to have asked that.
You're not the first. I mean, in the dev team, we actually had at one point someone hacked the build and someone was running around with double shields, and we're like,
that is awesome.
We never did that.
How do I feel about this?
Yeah, but so it's really cool. Our animation team is building unique sets of animations for the different speeds for the melee weapons, so you can get a really slow attacking weapon that has some variety in it, and then a really fast attacking weapon. And sometimes it'll roll as a random stat, and there are certain weapons that have very specific properties that only that weapon has. So that's really, really exciting. We know it's been a highly requested feature.
Right. I mean, creating your own fantasy with the build that you want, whether it be like a trap huntress, something non-conventional, or a combat apprentice, is something that you support to an extent. Maybe not optimal, but certainly viable.
Well, it's actually interesting you mentioned that. So another big, and you said you've been a little bit offline for the last month or so in the DD2 world, but we actually just, we're in the process right now of implementing what we call builds into the game. And it's very similar to, like, say, if you compare like Diablo 3's sets, where you get these collection of stats that dramatically change the way your character plays. So, for example, I don't know if Phil has it equipped right now. Do you have?
I don't, but I'm looking for some of the pieces, so hopefully I'll find one as we play, and then I can show everyone. That's what I was just scouring my inventory for.
Yeah, you'll see them because the text on the item has a different color based on each class, so it kind of shows, oh, this is the Huntress build stat, or this is the Apprentice build stat. The Apprentice one, when we first released it, it was completely overpowered, so you kind of missed the fun train.
That's the character I have max level as well.
Overpowered to the point where it broke everything in the game. But basically what it was called
I always do that.
It was this frost buff, where the frost towers, when they hit a target, the area around them increased both I think it was the attack speed and the damage of all towers inside the radius of
that is
effect.
fantastic.
And so it wasn't a bug. We knew about it before we patched, but we didn't realize just how bad it was going to be. The thing is that it's stacked. So players would build 4 frost towers, and every one was buffing.
Got to be careful with that stacking, man.
That
goes crazy quick.
It was funny. Within about 3 or 4 hours of the patch going up, there were posts going up in the forums about people getting like 60, 70, 100,000 DPS and going into the hardest nightmare content. And I'm not kidding you. Like, a boss would walk out with 1,000,000 health and it would die in 3 seconds. And we're going, okay.
Similar to Betsy with the Skyguard towers.
Yeah, exactly.
I've done. That's how I mean, how do you think I got to max level? Okay, so here's orcs. There are a lot of enemy types, dark mages, and they all play differently. And then there are kind of boss versions of them that can come out, which are just kind of steroided versions.
The special enemies, yeah.
But then there's also act bosses. So can you tell us about kind of the difference between those? I know that the kind of mini bosses, if you will, that come out are much more random.
Yep.
As where Betsy.
He has one right now, actually. Malthius just spawned.
There we go.
So look right on cue.
Yeah.
Like, you got this.
It's as if I knew. Wouldn't that be something? Where is he coming from?
No, over here.
Right there.
He's already sitting over there. Yeah, so we have a couple different types of encounters when it comes to how we spice up the content. And one of them, as you are seeing right now, are these mini bosses that can spawn. That can include things like ogres or these really hyped up versions of the enemies. There's Malthius, and he has huge AoE heals.
He's summoning
raises
skeletons.
a whole bunch of skeletons. Like, he can be really very frustrating if he can get loose and you don't take care of him. Though I think Phil is way overpowered right now.
Yeah, I am.
Stomped.
And then we have what you were talking about is kind of our they're kind of like internally we were calling them adventure packs. We create a series of maps that were based around a boss at the end, a boss encounter. And the one we have in the game right now is called Betsy. The name is so anticlimactically beautiful. I love it. And Betsy is the mother of all wyverns, or whatever, the queen wyvern mother. And you
some
actually,
kind of Game of Thrones reference.
Yeah.
So.
Well, what's funny
maybe
about
maybe not.
Yeah, there's a history with that. I'll say it in a second. But and with the Betsy sequence, we actually have her in cinematics laced for through 3 maps. And when you actually encounter her, the level is built around her encounter. You have different phases to her fight.
Right.
Where it's like you're going through the normal wave phase where enemies are coming in. Betsy is cursing pieces of the ground or attacking your towers. And then when it goes to you actually fighting her, she's moving around the space. She's breathing fire on you. She's flapping her wings to rush the enemies. All these different moves you have to deal with. And that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love that mechanical depth in boss fights. And something that I was really excited to see with Betsy in particular that I think stood out from other bosses. You know, telegraphs, like, I don't want to categorize boss fights as being similar, but like telegraphs and swipe attacks and buffs. I love that stuff. I love enrage timers. I'm a total WoW nerd for who knows how many years. But the thing that you did with Betsy that I loved is like you also challenged where I was building towers.
Yeah.
And like you made sure that in between the waves I was going to check and see if certain towers were cursed and if I needed to move that. So I like being challenged not only in the moment to moment, let me dodge this telegraph, but like if I'm just an apprentice builder dude, then like I want to have fun too, and that was absolutely a cool experience.
Yeah,
so
that was kind
you.
of one of our goals. Thank you, appreciate that. I'm sure Steve Collins, our lead level designer, will really appreciate that because there's a lot of experiments that we're going. We hope this is fun. You know, people would be frustrated with the towers. We weren't really sure. You know, we took a lot of leads from games like World of Warcraft. I mean, I was a veteran World of Warcraft player. I was in-game dungeon raiding and vanilla WoW, and you know, there was a lot of really cool mechanic maturity that we learned from watching those experiments. But for us, it was, like you said, we have this tower defense component, which is honestly a little bit more prevalent than even the action gameplay. So trying to find how you do a boss experience that's not just you running around and dodging and making it about the towers as well can be pretty challenging. And that was a lot of fun. We actually are in the middle right now of building our next boss. It's in this prototype phase at this very moment. We actually just played the first prototype last week on
That's
Friday.
got to be exciting.
Yeah, and that's going to be the boss. So the story, the way it goes, you play through the 10 campaign maps that are there initially. You get to the throne room, you meet the king. He's like, hey, go deal with this whole Betsy thing. You go deal with the Betsy thing. At the end, you're told, hey, the throne room, the castles are under attack, come back. And when you come back, that's where the dark maps are. The throne room, the ramparts maps where they're kind of destroyed.
Right,
We actually have
right.
happy versions now
Right.
that are all bright and like friendly.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, we swapped them out. So the one that you played, the ramparts and throne room you played, aren't in the game anymore. They've been removed.
No.
They've been replaced.
They're better though.
They're the same map layout,
Uh-huh.
but now there's a little bit of differences in the sub-objectives, but they're completely visually different. Phil can show them to you a little bit later. They're bright and cheerful, and like there's like in the ramparts you see all the friendly airships flying around. It's all happy and it's normal. When you come back after Betsy, that's where you fight the old dark ones, the ones that I think with the wars going on, and that culminates in a boss fight after you do the whole throne
So
room
Betsy
map.
was just an elaborate ruse to get you to leave the castle, and now they've ransacked the whole place.
And now you're coming
Clever.
back. And so
Clever,
that
well
boss
played.
is
I would not have
going
thought
out
it.
right now. And it's fun. You were talking about the name Betsy. We actually have a debate internally because we have a tendency to create these really, really downplayed internal dev names, and somehow they end up becoming the final. So Betsy was just someone like, because the reason our boss, and we talked about this publicly a lot, our boss's name for the one we're working on, his name is Carl.
Is that going to be his his canon name?
It may be, and it shouldn't be. It
I don't
really
think it
shouldn't
will.
be.
It won't-
If it's
it won't
if it's
this
like a
time.
K, then maybe like a K and an H. The little Game of Thrones.
Oh, that's
there.
true. You could do KH.
Yeah.
You could
Oh,
do
you
Carl.
just
Oh,
saved
that
it.
way.
Again,
That would
World
be
of Warcraft.
saved,
I'm
yeah.
super good at like making things RP that shouldn't be.
I
so.
love it. So we've always been joking because that was just a on a lark. One of the concept artists just put Carl on the original concept piece like way back a couple years ago. And so when we were making Betsy, someone's like, we need a ridiculous name for this giant wyvern dragon. How about Betsy? And then that stuck. Like now that's what she's called.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I like the name. It's it was definitely when it came up. I was like, really? Okay, fine. Let's kill this dragon.
Yeah, I'll challenge
So
myself.
while we're
now,
here,
see.
let's just talk about the different game modes. So there are a certain amount of set levels, at least right now. I think there's like 12 or 13 or so. But
13.
there's more that are going to be added. But the whole idea behind Dungeon Defenders 2 is it's a replayable, somewhat random experience, but not random enough to make you completely rethink like your build. Like you still execute
yet.
certain builds with that's a later question.
Yeah.
So talk to me about the different game types and how they kind of switch up the gameplay on levels you've already experienced.
Yeah. So we have 3 distinct buckets of content that you can play. When you first are creating your hero, you go through the campaign experience, and that takes you to about level 20 or so. And that's where you go through all the 13 maps in sequence. And if it's your first time through, you have quests that kind of take you through the experience, and you unlock the new content. After you finish the full campaign run, that's when you unlock free play. And free play is where you go from your 20s to max level 50. And all the maps are available, but there's a whole bunch of different game modes. So you have our difficulties. You have normal, hard. You have your first incursions, which are super challenging versions of the map with a specific mini-boss setup that really does something different, or the enemies have some buff on them that makes them very different, like chrome enemies that can't be knocked up in the air and stunned or whatever. And then you also have Onslaught. Onslaught is our survival-type game mode where you're sitting there and you can just play, honestly, endlessly. And has very specific rewards and things that you can do.
So you just go to a certain, the level of difficulty continues to increase as the waves get harder.
It does.
And
And what's
very
funny,
exciting.
I've seen on the forums there was someone that made a 9.5-hour Onslaught run. Wow. They started and they went straight. They got to like wave 20 something or whatever.
What class were they playing? What was their build? Tell
I
me
don't
quick.
remember. Yeah, I don't remember. It was a really cool post. And then after you finish all that, you get to wave level 50. You open up endgame. And endgame is kind of where you really dig into the difficulty part. You can see all the cool bordering around it. And we have our normal, normal and hard difficulties. Then you get into insane, and insane is where the difficulty really starts ramping up. And then you go through our nightmares. And nightmares where
How many nightmares?
There's 4 right now. Nightmares 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Oh,
And every nightmare is substantially harder than the one before it, and the drops that you get are better. And that's where, as you're getting deeper into Nightmare 3 and 4, that's where you really need those builds. Like if you don't have a set of gear that synergizes what you're creating and how you're using that, then you're gonna have a really difficult time.
so talk to me about how necessary team play is. So in World of Warcraft, for instance, since we've kind of talked about it a bit, there's some content you can do on your own that's very challenging, but then there's a completely different set of content that you absolutely, like 110% cannot do without other people.
Right.
And so there are certain archetypes, like the Squire gets incentivized to tank a little bit sometimes, to build walls other times, and you can obviously be a pure tower damage Squire, or it's a little bit more dynamic and less like restricted than, hey, you're this, this, and this, and nothing else.
Yeah.
But how do you decide whether or not a certain difficulty is going to require one or more players? Do you just say, okay, all the nightmare content is 4 players only, or what's the design process there?
Oh, here's Betsy. He decided to jump into a Betsy.
Probably gonna lose. We'll see. We'll see.
Are you in a mode that'll show the cutscene?
We'll see if it does.
So because I think the cutscene only plays in certain modes. We'll see. Let's give it 1. I don't think it's going to play the cutscene.
This is way more exciting than if there was a cut. Oh no, there it is.
Yep.
I skipped through this so many times. I have to disclose I made a video of how to farm this on story mode when the experience was a little bit broken. I was part of the problem, but hey.
I watched that video.
The path of least resistance is the path people take, including myself in this game. That's something you as designers, I'm sure, are aware of.
Yeah, I watched that video, and every single designer on the team watched that video. Like, we circulated around almost the day it went up. We're like, okay, here's the things that people are doing, and this is a professional guide to how to do it, so that's kind of fun. But to answer your question before about the co-op versus single-player kind of conversation, we actually, in the very beginning when we were working on some of our Nightmare content, had that internal discussion about, hey, do we want to make this content just for 4 players? Is it going to be 2 players or more? How do we want to do it? And we actually, after a lot of debates and discussion and some meetings about it, we decided that we wanted to support always solo play and co-op. We do have a few, very few pieces of content that are extraordinarily challenging, if not impossible to do solo, but that may be like 2 or 3 things. Like maybe one of the incursions, maybe it's theoretically possible, but it's going to be really, really, really tough. But most of the content is set up so that if you're a solo player, you can do that. And the reason why is we've watched our player behaviors, and it's interesting. A lot of our players play social. They'll play with other people. But the people that play social also play solo. They'll have that day where they're like, you know what, I'm going to come in, I'm going to knock out my dailies, I want to grind for a build item or whatever, and I'm not going to play with anyone. I want to set up the
Maybe
build
their
my
friends
way.
aren't on or something. They don't want to bother dealing with pub.
And locking that content out to those solo players was, we felt like it would be a very, very, very big negative. So right now we support co-op and solo all the way through. We're experimenting, like for example the Carl experience we talked about. At the moment it's aimed to be more co-op, just because we have a lot of very dynamic things that are happening during that fight that you need multiple people to react to. But even in that, our level designer and game designers are talking about, hey, is there a way that we can still make this potentially solo possible? We're not sure. That encounter is really complicated. But that's been a very... We actually at one point did take it a little more co-op, and the reaction of the community was just instantaneous. Like, please always support solo. And so we've really tried.
So how do you accomplish that? Is there scaling? So for instance, if I attempt this level, if there were 4 people in this game, would I be getting more monsters or more difficult monsters or monsters with more health? How does that whole process
So there is a little bit of scaling that happens, and we do some very specific tuning for single versus 4 players, or even we do like 1, 2, and 4 player buckets primarily. So there's a bucket for one player balance, there's a bucket for 2 co-op, just 2 people, and there's a bucket for 4 and 3 kind of blend together. But the real difference is about enemies that spawn that require player interaction. We have specific subsets of enemies that if you don't interact with them, they're going to really ruin your day. Dark mages are a good example of that. Dark mages sit in the back and just heal for forever, and if a player doesn't go and engage the dark mage, often they will really trump the rest of the lane, especially in harder difficulties. The wither beast can sometimes do that. The wither beast dig in and destroy things, and the special enemies can do that. If you spawn, like, say, 2 special enemies across the map from each other, one of them is going to get through if you only have 1 player in there. So we kind of are very mindful in the balance of where those required player interactions are happening in solo play. Versus in 4-player, you may have 2 of those things happening at once because we know there's enough people around
to deal with it. And also the communication. Just having 4 eyes on the map as opposed to just 1 is key. I'd like to point out how synergistic management solutions your build is right now, despite that wall just going down.
Yeah, I don't think
Phil's tough.
I don't think Phil's going to make it.
Oh, see, there you go.
What difficulty were you
I put on Nightmare 3.
What in the world were you thinking?
Look how pretty it is, though.
How are you going to play a Nightmare?
You'll have to do that build again just so we can...
Yeah, I'll do it again and then not.
But basically what you have here is you have a bunch of different elements interacting with each other. You have a water trap from the Huntress, which is soaking the enemies in water. They're then being electrocuted, so getting like a bonus to damage there, as well as being launched up, which enables them to be hit by your Skyguard tower.
Right.
So it's just a huge synergy there.
It's like one of those, Rube Goldberg machines?
Yes, exactly.
Kind of like training along.
And that's what's really fun too. There's a very different dynamic when you start and you only have 1 class and like, okay, I'm going to play the Apprentice and do this because none of my friends are an Apprentice right now. And then as you get towards the end game, you can kind of start playing whatever you want to, and between 4 players, there will be more than enough synergy to go around, I think. But it's cool. I commend you guys for requiring different classes, or at least incentivizing multiple people to play in ways that aren't like, you get bonus experience if you play with 4 people.
Yes.
Which I'm just like, ugh. Not naming names, but anyway.
Yeah.
Let's continue.
I think it's
bonus
really
experience is fine too. If you guys want to do that, please.
yeah, actually, if you show them real quick, we actually just added a new feature in our last major patch. It's called Daily Bonus. So every day, 5 maps will either give you bonus experience or bonus loot, depending on which group of content you're playing, whether you're playing free play or end game. So that allows you to like play 5 different unique maps.
That's really cool.
Honestly, based on some of the things that your article came out with. Because you posted about how here's the most efficient place to farm,
right,
play this map over and over again, and we're like, well, that's not what we want you to do. So after we all watched that video and watched what the players were talking about, we came up with this system where it's like, okay, we will make it like hard math more efficient to play 5 unique pieces of content.
Well done
then
is
you can
all
play
I
the
can
one thing
say.
over and over again.
I am completely flabbergasted, and I don't know. That's just awesome. That I was like 2 or 3 hours. I mean, granted, I'd been playing for like days on end, but in-game time. But that's awesome that such a little effort on my part could facilitate that. And yeah, that's absolutely the case. I think you should always. I think your design is flawed if you're not making the best experience also the most rewarding.
Yes, yes.
So
we talked about that a lot. And you know what's and this is actually you have Frosty power on some of those items.
Yeah, but this is on the Squire. His gear is clearly not set up correctly.
Yeah. The fun thing about what you were just describing, and I think is a good example of this, is that we have, in my opinion, and I think we have a pretty polished experience for the most part for an early access game. There's a lot of content out there you can play for hundreds and hundreds of hours, but we still are in early access. We're making these big changes. So when this commentary comes from anybody, we read the forums, we're paying attention. Even with the hero deck conversation, we know why we created the hero deck. We see people that like it. We also see people that are not necessarily as satisfied with that experience yet. So we're taking big looks at all of those commentaries and going, okay, it may take us 3 weeks, it may take us 4 months, depending on what the scope of the change is, but we're trying to figure out the best way to create those rewarding experiences.
Right, and also, as I'm sure you learned from Dungeons & Dragons 1, it's an ever-evolving process because the hero deck may be in a good place now, but then if you have 25 heroes, then maybe 4 is too few.
And that's exactly right, yep.
Yeah.
Phil,
Okay, so we're trying the same build, which I'm into. I really like all that synergy happening there.
Are
I'm
you in
quite
Nightmare
familiar
1
with this
now?
map.
Yes.
Okay.
I still don't know if it's going to work. The gear
I
on these
don't-
characters is not very well thought out.
So it's funny. This is actually a really interesting story. So when the difficulty patch first came out, we introduced the Nightmare modes. We actually made Nightmare a little bit too easy. And so players were getting through the Nightmare content much faster than we wanted them to. Some of that was because of things like the Frost power, Frosty, whatever, breaking the game. Some of it was because we just didn't balance the content as hard as we wanted to. Some of it actually was because of a couple bugs. We had a couple scaling bugs in there where you'd have like an ogre that had 100,000 health and he was supposed to have 2 million. And we saw those bugs coming up. And we saw people moving through it, and we're like, okay, we're going to need to revamp this. So we did a very specific wipe. We wiped only Nightmare content. We gave people cool rewards if they had Nightmare gear. And then we rebalanced Nightmare. And the directive of the level design and game design team at the time was make sure that it's challenging. Make sure that we get a nice, rewarding, challenging experience for our players. And we actually pulled in community members before and played on our pre-release branch. It's like, here's the gear that we want you to be having at these points. Play this content. And they're like, man, this is hard, but we can play it. It's not impossible. It's fun. They were really liking it. And so we got a lot of positive feedback. We're like, all right, Nightmare 1 is doable. Nightmare 2 is getting impossible. Nightmare 3 is stupid. And that's where we want it to be. Then we release it. And the community lost their minds. They were like, it is impossible. We can't get past the first map. What did you guys do? I was playing on Nightmare 3, and now I can't even play Town Entrance without losing in the first wave instantly. And we're going, no. I mean, like, we went way too far the other direction. And we ended up having to pull it back. Now we feel it's getting kind of in a sweet spot. We pulled it back a little bit difficulty-wise.
Yeah, and a lot of that is pushing it live and seeing how your community reacts to it. And I remember an infamous example of that was when Diablo 3 released, and following the whole development cycle of that game, it was like, this game better be difficult, this game better be difficult, and developers were like, don't worry, we'll make it difficult. Turns out they made it statistically impossible to do at the end if you weren't the right class, and it just wasn't. And then at that point, it was almost like, you know, like you're a father and your kid is taking like wrestling classes and he's like, I'm so tough, I'm so tough. And you're like, really? And you push him in the ground and then he starts crying. It's because, you know, to a point you need to be more mature and be like, okay, well, we're not going to beat you to death with the difficulty out here. And but it's definitely a process. And I guess the only solution to that is obviously constant balancing, constant feedback, kind of like whack-a-mole to some sense, but also having an end goal. So
No, the whack-a-mole thing, it's funny. That's actually a term that we use internally sometimes because that's what it feels like. You're like, all right, we made it too easy, then we made it too hard, too easy. And we, we take the steps to try to make it work. We do that extra due diligence of pulling in players from the community. We do a lot of focus testing. We invite people to the studio and do testing with them. We do a lot of that for campaign. But, I mean, even when you do that, you just, your greatest plans don't survive contact with the enemy. So I'm not saying the community is the enemy, but, like, once it goes out there, you just have no idea.
Right.
Yeah.
It's got to be a pretty humbling experience as well.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, we were talking about dailies, and we were talking about the daily maps, and that's an awesome system that has just gone into the game. But talk to me about monthly dailies, about these really cool items that take a lot longer to... I really love the idea of monthly as well as weekly dailies, because logging into certain MMOs or things like that, you do your dailies, begins to feel very monotonous. But if you have a monthly or weekly goal, I feel as though at least... you're thinking about the long game, because there's no way you're going to grind that out overnight. I mean, you might, but hopefully not. Please don't do that to yourself.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the thought process is exactly what you described. We wanted to create, we call them different types of reward loops. You have your small, medium, and large reward loops, and those happen in every aspect of the game, whether it be just the moment-to-moment gameplay or the way that we want you to feel rewarded as you're accomplishing larger meta goals. And so we have our daily missions that show up where those are really centered around, okay, here are the things we want you to do today. Go play this map, go kill these many enemies or whatever. And then we wrap in, right now we just have monthlies. We've actually talked about weeklies. We've heard that come up a couple times. We don't have them yet. But in the monthlies, it's let's create a set of things that you can do that are somewhat related to each other, maybe somewhat not, but are much, much longer term. And if you play organically throughout the month, most likely you're going to hit it naturally.
Right.
If you really focus fire it, you can. And right now we've been using, we're probably going to do more rewards than this just at the moment, but at the moment they're mostly pets. They're unique pets that you can only get through completing the monthly. They're a guaranteed tier, so they're always going to be a mythic tier. And they have a unique ability that only is on that pet.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get that pet, it has an active if you evolve it that you can use that is special. And so far, we've seen a lot of success with it. People seem to like the lion a lot.
The lion is really cool.
He has a little thunderstorm ability, I believe.
That he does.
Yeah.
And also, I'm a big fan of veteran rewards if they're done right.
Yeah.
That being said, I get super OCD when I miss one. I'm like, I can't play this game anymore.
Yes.
It has to be uninstalled.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned that, because another thing that we're experimenting with right now are we do like a weekend events and week-long events, special things that are just running. So right now,
so like holiday kind of deal. Stuff
no,
or
sometimes. Like right now, we have an event running where all loot. There's like I think we tripled or doubled the amount of loot dropping off of normal enemies.
Okay.
So it's like we call it the loot cave. I don't know what we could be homaging when we say that. Whatever, some game that may or may not be out there. We call it the loot cave event. That's been running for it's run for a week, so we're about halfway through it right now. And enemies are just dropping loot like candy. And we wanted to see both if people like that kind of loot drop chance, and two, just to give them a really fun difference. But the one that made me think about that is that we also did one, we've only done it once so far because it didn't go so well. We did an event about a month and a half ago that was a pet unique event. So we had a pet that was going to be only available for this weekend. It was dropping in certain buckets of content, and we may have set the drop rate a little lower than we...
Oh, no.
We thought it was within reach for everybody. But then we were reading the forums, and some guys were like, I played for this many hours, and I haven't seen it all. And I'm like, oh, no. And it was someone exactly what you're talking about. They're like, this is frustrating, but I don't want to miss this thing.
Right.
And so
I remember the first one. It was
a Flickerwick.
Yep.
Yeah.
I have that guy.
Oh, you got one?
I did.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And my friend was somebody who was playing basically every single, like all the time that I was at work, he was playing Dungeon Defenders 2 for that whole week. And yeah, he didn't get one, but I did, and I was like. Well, I don't want to rub this in your face because you helped me get this, but...
That's the funny part. The person that gets it goes, yeah, I feel really good. And the person that played for 9 hours that weekend and didn't get it goes, oh, man, I feel you're not going to You're done.
Yeah, I'm done.
Got a lot farther though that time.
I did.
I commend you for trying Nightmare
like
and just
the Plating Hulk walking in the middle,
yeah.
you're just like, no, I'm not even going to do that right now.
Okay, so let's talk about gear. We've talked a lot about how to... how it's a reward for players and stuff like that. But let's talk about the actual pieces of gear that are in the game right now.
Yeah.
So we have different...
he has another build piece right there, too, by the way.
We have different rarities, and some gear, like your pet and your weapon, is aesthetically apparent. Other gear, like your armor, is not, but it still is essential to your character build.
Yes.
So what was the thought process there? Is it just like, it's probably a ton of resources to commit to having to create shoulders, like a model for shoulders, head, boots, and all that stuff, and you guys just wanted to focus those resources on a place that made the player experience a little bit better.
What's actually fun is this is a really cool story. So there's a lot of history to what we were just talking about there. So when we first kicked off DD2, DD2 is going to be a free-to-play game down the road. Right now it's paid early access, but we're going to go free. And we knew we use a term that we politely borrowed from the Path of Exile developers. We call it ethical monetization. Our goal is to create monetization loops that monetization opportunities that don't interfere with the game loops. So things like, if you expand your inventory, that's really not interfering with the game loop. If you do things like cosmetics, they certainly don't. But that we don't do anything that ties to power or even growth. You can't boost your character's health or experience or anything like that. And we were having those conversations. We knew that one of the #1 ways for us to generate revenue and keep the studio in business was making costumes. So we went, all right, if we're going to make costumes, then it's going to be really confusing to have chest pieces and boots and whatnot in the game. And so when DD2 first started out, those systems didn't exist. We had this system called relics. And there were 4 relic slots on your character. They were like you could put in books, totems, and rings, which you now see there's 1 relic slot left.
Right.
There used to be 3 of them, 3 different types. And all the gear on your character were all relics. It was a weapon and 4 relics, and that was it. And they had the same statistical values as what you have in the game right now. And we spent months, up until our initial early access launch, right before it, trying to make that system understandable. And we tried, at one point, there was an outline of a boot and a V effect around the relic to show you which slot it would go in, and players just had no idea what that was. And then we removed the outline and just made them specific relic slots, and people who didn't feel like they were rewarding, they're like, I have a character that has a bow, 2 books, and a ring. What does that even mean? It didn't make any sense to people. And so we kept on. Back then, that was when the Defense Council was the only group that existed. We had about 700 players that had donated money to charity, and they were playing our game on weekends and whatnot and giving us feedback before early access went fully live. And we had these dev streams with them where we were like talking to them and going, all right, here's what we did. Here's why we did the relics thing. Here's why we did not do boots and chests and whatnot, because what you were just talking about, we felt like people, if they picked up a chest piece, would want it to change their character. And they went, listen, we understand that. Makes sense in theory. Forget it. Like, give us boots and helmets and gloves, because that makes sense to everybody and us. And even though it may feel a little bit awkward that it doesn't change your character, it's exceedingly more awkward when it doesn't make any sense about what you're doing. And so we were like, all right, good feedback. And so within about, honestly, like 3.5 weeks before early access went live, we ripped out the relic system, put every art resource in the studio on creating those meshes, and swapped that system out within about 3 weeks before we went live on Steam for early access. And we think that the system we have right now, though we do get that feedback every once in a while, most people just completely understand it.
Yeah, no, it was definitely something that, like, that's basically exactly how I felt about it. It's like, at first it's like, okay, all right, well, it didn't necessarily change anything because I'm just used to that, but I understand it. There are all these skins. There are these things. I can see my weapon. I think that's a very important part.
Right.
And the weapons look pretty badass.
Yeah.
So
that's kind of the story behind it.
That's cool. This is really, I mean, this is one of the reasons I love doing these streams is you often wonder about these decisions when you're playing and when you're a younger gamer, and then once you kind of understand the resources and development decisions and all these things, it begins to make sense, and you realize, no, the devs don't hate you. They just have to make decisions at times.
And we don't always make the right ones, that's for sure.
Right.
But yeah.
But at least you're receptive, and I think that's such an important part of being a developer with a game like this that's online and persistent and continuing and is an MMO to a point, or at least in the sense that, like, you're going to be playing this for a number of years.
Yes.
You really hope to see that it's not just okay, that's the way it is, we're moving on.
Yeah.
We don't want to hear about anybody's feedback because that's so important. But
by the way, this is I don't think you've seen this yet. This is the happy version of that map. So if you go outside really quick for a second, Phil. This is so you played the one.
I think I've played this one.
You played the bright one? If you go outside, and the one that before there was like ships fighting in the background.
Oh no, wait, yeah, I've definitely played that one.
So
definitely
this
played
is the one that one's not in the game right now. This is the one that we swapped out. So this is before the attack on the castle.
Oh, okay.
So
Man,
you'll see like really pretty vistas and all the airships that are just going about their business. It's nice and
it is very pretty.
Really. And then after the Betsy encounter, you're supposed to come back to this content. It's going to be the ones that we removed.
Right, and then that's going to be the other. And then we're going to have that kobold boss fly through up there.
You can still, by the way, see if you go back to the top, you can see in the far distance the war. It's not there yet, though. It's kind of on the far distance.
That's super cool.
You can still see the
Talk to me. Is that it over there?
That's the war. You saw that like in the town square map where it's all in the distance. So
talk to me about the lore of this game, because this is totally one of those games that you can kind kind of just accept the aesthetic and what's going on in the world and just play it mechanically, which is often the case with what I do, even with games that I end up getting involved in the lore, and I start just like, well, I'm just playing this because it's fun. But what's going on in the world? Obviously, there's a castle that's being sieged by a token evil force, if you will. And
a token evil. I like it. Yeah, the story really revolves around these ancient enemies called the Old Ones, the token evil force, if you will.
The Old Ones.
And there's a really cool trailer that I wish we could pull up and show. It'd be on YouTube. It'd be hard to show it in the game because you have to have a new character, a new account. But basically what happens is a long time ago, these ancient evils were roaming around and destroying Etheria, and these heroes captured them and constrained them into these crystals called Eternia crystals, and that's kind of their prison. That's where they're trapped. And a force recently in this history has been going around and shattering the crystals and re-releasing them out into the world. And so that's why you have these armies of these enemies, the hordes of the Old Ones, coming back, trying to destroy Etheria and free all of their brethren. So at this stage in the world is completely at war. Most of the crystals have shattered, and the few that are remaining are trying to be protected by the forces that are still around trying to help. So you have, like, in the very first mission of the game, the first map, the heroes are escorting a crystal into the city. You see the cart, and the crystals on the cart, and then they're bringing it in. And actually in the Betsy maps, they're trying to protect the originally. Now I think they're eggs, but originally that was a crystal that they were taking through the Betsy map. So we ended up changing that part of the lore. Right. But that laces through a lot of the different story pieces. And there is an antagonist that's going through and releasing these things purposely, and you end up in the new intro that we created for the game, you end up seeing him kind of like smash a crystal and then walk away into the distance, and it's just this kind of cool tension moment. So when we made DD2, in DD1 the story was very bunch of kids made a mistake and like, oh no, the evil's out, and it was very like, it was very fun, but it was very it was a small team of like 10 people that built DD1. It was a very different scoped game, and the lore was just kind of happenstance. It just kind of took place around the content they were building. Now we've really tried to mature the world. You know, the heroes have grown up. If you look in DD2 and all the maps, you can see other maps from where you are. So we have kind of a world where things live, and we're really trying to create that narrative. One thing that I think I wish we could show it to you now, but you can't see it in this current build. It's on the PS4 build actually. We also are trying to get that kind of that Pixar tension style. Like where Pixar has some really deep, mature emotional moments, but a kid can understand them because they'll happen off screen or they'll be in a subtext kind of way. So if you remember back in the old throne room map, you'd see the king's portrait slashed, and you'd walk up and his throne would be slashed, and you see the crown prince sitting there cradling his father's crown.
Right.
So you don't actually see any of that action happen. You didn't see the tragedy.
But you know.
But you can see the implication of him sitting there and just holding the crown next to the throne, and you're like, man, I wonder what happened here. So we're really trying to bring that story experience into a game that's a tower defense game, and add that depth. It's a lot of fun for us.
No, it's great. It's not imposing, but it's there if you want it.
Yeah.
For sure. And I think that's I'm definitely a fan of that as opposed to like, watch this cutscene, just unskippable every time.
Just by messing with my gear, I increased my defense health so much.
You need to rebuild.
By double, I need to replace all of these. That's good.
That
means I might actually survive.
See, like Phil is actually like completely in the zone right now. He's trying to max his character.
I'm trying to actually win. I don't want to lose
Min-maxing.
again. Yeah,
it would be too embarrassing. You cannot take it. All right, I'm going to ask what I'm sure is probably a question that you receive all the time, and it's probably a touchy subject, so brace yourselves.
Oh, let's do it.
Okay, so it's a very social game, obviously. It's item-driven, and when there's social item-driven games, there's usually trading, and there was trading in the first Dungeon Defenders. I have heard rumors that it may be coming to the game at some point. Are you afraid that I assume it's got to be because there's just a whole other plethora of
We sit in a
player
closet and we just rock back and forth and go,
That's what I would be doing.
Trading. No.
I've had some of the best and worst experiences in my teens.
Yes.
From Diablo 2 trading. Trade's gone bad. Some guy totally
Staff
pulled
of
a
Jordan
fast
for
one
days,
on me.
right? Or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'll go into detail on this because I think this is a good topic to talk about. Trading is something that I wouldn't say that we're scared of. We want to make sure that we're sensitive to the impact that can happen when you implement trading in a way that interferes with your core loops. And I think the best example of this that everyone is familiar with now is Diablo 3's Auction House. And I actually talked about this the other day on another stream where it's not that the auction house system by itself is a bad idea. MMOs do auction houses, they work just fine. The problem is that with the way that the core loop of a game like Diablo or even Dungeon Defenders is structured, you're min-maxing a stat roll, a random roll. It's not like you're min-maxing the drop chance. That's part of it, but it's like what that drop chance contains. And WoW, you get a drop from boss, it's going to be the same loot every time. It's just trying to get that. So if it's traded in an auction house, that's not the thing. But in a game like this, if I can sit there and go in an auction house and see the perfect roll in a piece of gear, then my instincts as a gamer is going to know the most efficient way to really get that gear is not to grind it, is to get the currency and buy it, whether it be real money or even in-game currency. And that's not usually fun. It's like not as fun of an experience to just sit there and grind gold all day and then go buy something out the auction house that someone else found. So we're being really careful about how we approach that concept because we think trading definitely has a place. There's a lot of cool advantages of trading. You can create unique social structures. You can create value as someone who can provide something for other players. We've talked a lot about different ways that we can do it. We've talked about maybe doing certain items being soulbound type things. We talked about doing, trading where there's a little bit of friction points to it, where maybe you have to set up. I don't know, if there's been bad ideas, like maybe we set up shops like the Ragnarok Online used to have, where you have to be online for your shop, but then you have to take it down so you can't just globally always be online. And, maybe you have to trade. I mean, I don't know. We have talked about a lot of different ideas. Maybe we'll trade specific components you need for upgrading items as opposed to the items themselves. Who knows? It's definitely something that we're going to do. I think trading is a given. Trading will be in Dungeon Defenders 2 at some point in time. But we want to make sure that first and foremost, we focus on the right problems right now, which is really making the loot game as fun as it can be, making the balance as fun as it can be. And then the second part of it, which is making sure it doesn't break all that fun once we get it in there.
It's interesting. There's a lot of, I think there's a lot of parallels in the design challenges of this game with Diablo 3, because I think it's almost like a complete, hey, here's how we thought it would work, and it totally didn't, and here's how we eventually fixed it. And yeah, I can totally sympathize with that experience from Dungeon Defenders 1 when I leveled my Huntress up. The most efficient way for me to get not just the best weapon, but like a weapon that was going to be much better than anything I found in X amount of hours playing, and I had already accrued amount of currency in the game, was to just go into a shop and buy it. They were like dirt cheap because somebody who's very max geared, you know, and that's always, I mean, that has to do with like the loot curve and stuff like that, but it's true. It's you're creating an experience for a player, and then if you're able to sidestep, is that really what you want? So I do not envy you trying to have to figure that puzzle out, because it is a very difficult one.
And it's funny because players will think that's what they want. This is talking about player asking for something but not actually necessarily wanting the thing that they're asking for directly. They just want that sensation, that part of that experience. I think that if players want to be able to enjoy the loot game, they want to have that be powerful and meaningful. But at the same time, it really comes down to a status symbol. They want to be the person that can go, hey, come get this thing from me that I've earned. They want that's the aspirational goal. They want to be the Baron. Hey, I'm the guy who has all this cool stuff, and I'm the one who gets to be in that.
Well, that's me too.
Yeah.
Definitely like.
And everyone likes that.
Being the big boss, not referencing anything there either. I'd like to welcome anybody who just happens to be tuning in right now. Another stream just ended, and we are getting an influx of people watching this one. So welcome. This is Dungeon Defenders 2. My name is James Duggan. This is IGN Plays Live. This is Philip, and this is Brad. They are developers from Trendy, and we are playing on the PC, although the PS4 build is coming out very soon. That's on September 29th, so you'll be able to check that out. So it's going to be free to play at some point, but to get into this early access of the game, you just have to pay or purchase a package, basically. So tell me about the pricing for that, and tell me about what you get that you can then show off to your friends later down the line. Be like, you'll never be able to get this. But I did.
I'll let Phil do the pricing talks with he. I want to make sure we follow the right structures there. But at a high level, all the packages have unique reward setups that are going to be exclusive to early access. So on PC, you can, if you buy the collector's edition pack, I don't remember exactly what the price point is right now on that one. You get costumes that you only get as part of early access, kind of a thank you for participating in this program with us. And we also give you a very good deal on the amount of premium currency that you get. You can spend on things like costumes and inventory expansion.
But I'd like to point out, there's a lot of early access, free-to-play stuff that is done incorrectly. You said to me earlier that Path of Exile was a big influence for you.
Oh, yeah.
Chris Wilson, I have met, and he is just a paragon of a person when it comes to free-to-play. And so everything in your game that can be paid for is aesthetic and
Yes.
non-fundamental to you being efficient in combat. Is that correct?
That's correct. Grinding Gears, love the Grinding Gears guys. Big shout out to them. I think that Path of Exile was an awesome example to us on a way that you can really have a game like ours that has those kind of loops that doesn't monetize them in a what I would consider kind of an abusive way. And there's games that it works in just fine. It's not to say that it's bad to necessarily have a power curve that you monetize or a time curve that you monetize, but I think that for us, that isn't really what our customers want to see from this particular type of product.
Right.
And so we use the term ethical monetization. I mentioned it earlier. You know, we don't monetize game loops. We monetize cosmetics, we monetize inventory expansion, things like that. But when it comes to power, even growth, a big contention point is, well, can't you just do boosts? Can't you just have a boost where I get 50% experience? We've had people ask for that, and we're going, I don't think we want to do that. Maybe there's an in-game way to boost your, like the hero deck maxes, the skill spheres, but to pay for that just gives you an advantage over somebody else. And we want that growth and that power curve to be protected.
That's very noble, and I think that's the way it should be done, honestly.
Yeah. And then on
awesome.
PSN, we were talking about this earlier. The PSN price points, the lowest tier pack is
$14.99 through $74.99.
Yep. And for PSN Plus users, there is a discount available. That's going to be on launch. So
Great.
We're going to start with doing cool discounts for PSN Plus users in the beginning. You will not need a PSN Plus account when the game goes free to play it.
Or at launch.
Super cool. Or at launch. But we're going to do constant support for PSN Plus users to give you some really cool options for you as we progress through the game as a service.
So let me tell you why I'm excited that this is free to play. Because in Dungeon Defenders 1, that was a conventional monetization style. That was a game that I really enjoyed when it launched. My friends and I played. We stopped playing at a point, played some other games, came back a couple months later, and there was just like
How
a
much DLC?
heaping pile of DLC. And I was like, my wallet isn't this big.
We only released 1 or 2.
So you guys do a fantastic job of keeping the game present. There's obviously continuous balance patches as well as content patches. You're always thinking of the new next thing, whether it's adding a class to the game, adding new levels, new difficulties, new trading systems, or what have you. There's all this stuff that you guys add, and with the free-to-play, you can experience that without having to pay for it, obviously.
Right. And then you pay for things that you're excited about.
Because you're a gentleman, and it's kind of like tipping. It's the way I looked at when I saw Path of Exile. I was like, you know what, this game's great. I can literally play the entire thing start to finish and have the exact same experience as somebody who purchased a huge package, like a $250 pre-order package, but I'm completely flattered that they did this. So I'm going to spend X amount of money, get this cool aesthetic thing, and then like give the developers kind of a nod of the hat and be like, thanks. I'm an adult. I can afford to pay for my games. Here you go.
Yeah, and it's interesting because as a free-to-play gamer myself, that's always the way I kind of feel about it too. You know, it's like I play a great game, and I think, being a developer, just even, and there's good and bad games out there. Even games that are not so good, it took a lot of effort for someone to make that game. And you're just like, you know what? Cheers to you. I understand that there's struggles in development or whatever, but you deserve some respect for the enjoyment that I got out of this experience, no matter whatever it was. And I think that there's an advantage.
I just wish this whole free-to-play thing was happening when I was 14. It didn't have any money. The ultimate irony is that I had to pay through, pay through that whole phase of $15 a month plus $40 for an expansion. And now that I'm an adult and have a stable job and can afford to pay for that stuff, it's all free.
Yeah.
Hilarious. Well done.
That's cool.
Well done, universe.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's quite a few topics we can talk about. So far, we've covered classes. There's more classes coming to the game. You guys are experimenting with new bosses as well as weapons and things like that. We've talked about the character deck, but you actually just did a big update on the inventory, or that is coming very soon. That's something that I think was, like an experience that I remember seeing a little thing. It's like, this is just placeholder. Don't freak out.
Are you talking about the
Auto collect
scavenger stuff?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's a good one. You're on point with the topics.
I do my homework,
awesome.
man.
Yeah.
What can I say?
I love it. So the scavenger was a fun thing because, and I use the word fun very specifically. We had created a system in DD2 for a while that was called the temporary item bag or temporary item box tip. And what the tip did is it served a couple of different purposes. Its primary purpose, the reason why we created it, is that we felt that when you're playing a match, when you're engaged in the game, it's not a good thing to have to do inventory management in the middle of the game. And when you finish the match, you want to go back to the tavern or whatever. If you're having to sit there and going, man, I'm out of bag space, do I pick this thing up or do I not? Do I let it auto-sell? Having to think about that when you're blocking people from playing or whatever is a bad experience.
Right.
So we created an overflow. Whenever I pick up an item that I don't have space for, it would go into the tip. And then we unconsciously, not really in thinking about it, expanded its functionality to pick up items that you didn't pick up in the world. So if I left a whole bunch of loot in the world and the match finished, it would just automatically pick those things up.
Sometimes there's a reason I left it there.
So that was not what we wanted to do because, like I mentioned before, we only have a few ways to really generate revenue with DD2 because we're trying to be very ethical about how we monetize it. Inventory space is one of them, and the TIB functionality we felt was really helping kind of alleviate some of the pressures that we want on inventory space. To be honest and completely upfront about it, that was a place that we make money off of. So we were like, okay, we want to keep the spirit of the TIB there. It has a very specific purpose, but we need to shift the way we're doing it. So we ended up creating this thing called the Scavenger, where we took the functionality of the TIB, put it into an NPC in the tavern that did the main things we wanted it to. If something fell out of the world, it would go to the Scavenger, and if your inventory was full and you attempted to pick something up, it would go to the Scavenger. But it stopped auto-collecting all the loot. And we knew there was going to be some tension around it, but we're like, we think this is a better decision for what we're trying to head with the game. Everyone lost their minds. Like that went live, and like the forum posts and velocity and commentary about it was tremendous. And the reason why, and it's something that, I mean, like the day the patch went out, this stuff started happening, and I remember pulling the design team into a room and talking about it. And what it exposed to us was actually problems or difficulties in how players were evaluating loot in the game. You know, items in our world drop on the map, but unlike Diablo, where you have kind of this top-downish perspective where they're kind of spread out, you can just mouse over them like this. We're in a 3D world where the objects are arranged like this.
Yeah,
and you're trying to like aim at it. And you're like,
figure out
which one am I touching? Especially there's like 5 or 6 of them there, and so we're like, man. People are frustrated because they want to make a quick evaluation on whether I should get rid of this or whether I should keep it, just to know if they should pick it up or not, and they can't do that very cleanly. So what they're using the TIB for is to get everything in a UI they can just mouse over, make really quick evaluations, and then go. These ones I don't care about, these ones I want to keep. And we really made that a lot worse when we removed it. So we know that down the road we need to work on how items drop and how they arrange themselves and how you highlight them. But the big thing we did is we added an auto-collect system in. So now you can actually take a bag and set it up to auto-collect. So when a match ends, it'll take all the loot that's in the world and put it in your auto-collect setup bag for you, and then you can go and make decisions off of it if you want. We actually plan to expand this even further in the future, where you can set it to auto-collect certain bags to collect auto-collect specific things. So you can say, this is my Squire auto-collect bag, this is my Huntress auto-collect bag. So all Squire loot would go in this one, all Huntress loot would go in that one, and allow you even more control over how the game puts items into your inventory, and then you can sort them. Maybe you can say, I only want legendaries, or I only want mythics and legendaries, or whatever. So we really like this idea better. We think it solves both problems a lot more effectively. And player feedback is what kind of pushed us to have to look at it right then and there.
There you go. That's awesome. Hey, here's a random question. This is only for my personal, I guess you could call it a vendetta at this point. But so those Huntress towers, do those stack? Like, so if I have 6 of them firing at one boss, it's only a certain amount of poison stacks that can be applied before Take that, Chris. I knew I was right.
Yeah, there's a cap.
He would waste so many resources on those things. And I was like,
I'm pretty sure there's a cap.
There's a cap.
It was that way at one point in time. For all I know, we've broken it.
I was pretty sure. I did some like testing on my own.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, we have a boss coming down. He's like, all right, I'll set up 20 of these. I'm like, no, dude, come on.
I think I want to say it stacks 7 times or 6 times. Like there's a certain cap.
So it is beneficial to have more than one down, just so you get the stacks
or
apply
the fire
faster,
rate,
but
because it rolls on itself. So when it applies, when it damages again, I think that they can, because there's like multiple bullets and or multiple projectiles, and each one of them hits the poison dot. I believe, it's a really good question for Dan Haddad, our creative director, because he's the one who actually implemented the balance on that. We have tweaked that number a number of times. At one point we had like a rolling poison where like everyone it applied wouldn't reset the thing, but it would do more damage up front and then roll off. Kind of like a rolling ignite thing from a while back in the Scorch days. But we've changed it a few times. So
cool. Well, that's I'm sure that's also subject to player feedback. If you have feedback for the developers, tweet at us at IGN. Ooh, sweet legendary loot. With the hashtag IGNPlaysLive. Ask us some questions. We're on here for about another half hour. Awesome. These guys have to roll out. But until then, we will take all of your questions. So you can talk to us in the YouTube chat, the Twitch chat, or tweet at us. But the tweet is where I will be checking first. So if you have some burning question that you need to ask these guys about, you've been trolling the forums for months and haven't gotten a response, I have them pinned in a room for 30 minutes.
Let's do it.
Now is your chance.
Any question is fair game.
You guys have been pretty good about answering so far. I like the honesty. No PR answers so far. I'm impressed. So let's talk more about some team play. What are some of your favorite team comps? And basically, with the character deck, how do you incentivize team play, even though I could basically just do all this on my own to a point? Do you just rely that people are going to want to play with each other because it's fun at some point, or?
No, I think what we do for team play, and honestly, I'm a little bit, I wouldn't say frustrated. It's just when you're making a game, I just be a long-winded answer for this. When you're making a game, there are so many things that you want to work on that end up fighting for priority for things that you really need to work on. And one of the features that really is designed to facilitate team play is the combo synergy system you were talking about earlier. Lightning auras interacting with geyser traps with the wet debuff, and knockups interacting with the Skyguard towers.
Right.
The way that that's engineered is not right. In our dev terms, we call it the combo system, and the combo system is set up as a chain of debuffs and buffs, and it does work, but it's extremely clunky to work with whenever we're trying to modify, add, or edit balance numbers, add new things. So for a while now, we've wanted to do new combos. We've wanted to do combos with poison. We wanted to do combos, even the ones that work right now, and modify them. We did have a combo for a while where Frost would cause a shatter effect with smashing damage.
Oh yeah, I'm more than familiar with those.
And we removed that because it was way overpowered.
Well, we just made it so it was double damage instead
right.
of instant
Well,
kill.
we removed it for a while, and we just added that back in. That double damage thing just came back in recently. And right now, there's this backlog item. There's an item in our works that we want to do that is basically reprogramming, or implementing the combo system to make it more data-driven and robust, so that then we can expand and modify it the way we want to. So at the moment, I think the combos work really well. We have some really neat, like the oil flask ignite combo is a lot of fun.
Love that.
It's a really cool one. But you kind of probably noticed, at least in the last 6 months or whatever, we haven't really done much more with it, and that's because it's been on hold for that specific set of work.
So you have all these things you obviously want to add to the game that you want to go back and revisit, whether it be UI changes or the combo system or bosses or new levels or classes and stuff. And you have basically this timeline, and this is a question that I always ask developers because it's very interesting to me, like how you can say, okay, my game is done now, when the launch of it is totally ambiguous. Like, the launch of it technically is when people can pay for it, and now they have access to the game, and the servers are live. And you have classified your game as pre-alpha.
Now it's alpha, actually.
Oh, it's an alpha?
Yeah.
Mind blown. Sweet.
What does it mean?
So that's my question.
Oh,
what does it mean? How do you decide, okay, now it's in an alpha state, now it's in a beta state, and now we're going to launch?
Right.
And there's kind of, and it's funny working at IGN because there is kind of a conventional thing associated with, we have these review scores, and a lot of the times they work best on games that are like, okay, it's going Gold Master, it's story driven, it's out right now, you can go buy it.
Right.
But then we have all these PC games that are coming along that the launch is a much more ambiguous thing. So is there a thought of like, well, it's going to get reviewed, so it better be perfect at this point? Or
it's a very good question, and I spend a good amount of time on the forums. You'll see me post on the forums pretty frequently, and sometimes we'll get these threads talking about this thing, or it's like, oh, they're saying it's in pre-alpha, but I've been in software development for 20 years, and here
it looks
are
pretty good to me.
Here are the
Right.
structures of way you build a game. This is what pre-alpha means. This is what alpha means, and they're like, giving textbook definitions from the way you build software for like a data management company or something, and those are all legitimate terms for gaming, and even for look at companies like Google. They use those terms for anything. Like we do the same kind of thing. We set for ourselves what the terms mean for us, and we publish those. They're on our FAQ, kind of what the different steps are. So we feel like even though we're a game as a service that's constantly going to be evolved, there's a certain critical mass of features that we want to get done to say, yes, this is at the point where we're proud of what we have, and we feel like we're comfortable.
I've never had that happen. Legendary chest out of nowhere. Careful what you say, because this will be clipped out and put on YouTube. I've never even seen one.
It's really, really rare, actually. That's super crazy cool, Phil.
I hope you get something cool.
Oh my gosh.
It better be something sweet.
Oh, he's a guaranteed. Oh, he has a crap ton of loot.
Look at that.
Jeez.
A loot explosion, if you will.
What did you get as your...
Legendary gloves.
Oh, yours are a little bit higher in eye power, aren't they?
So this just means that where you got those gloves was on a higher difficulty, and that's how the whole eye power system works.
He's playing. Well, his bow, I think, is completely stacked, so he's like doing 120 damage per shot.
I was just killing the ogres in one.
Because he should be. I think he should be in a nightmare tier right now, but he.
It was too difficult.
Can't seem to make it.
So do you just?
I think I can do nightmare
how'd you
one.
get
I'll
this
try
loot?
again.
Do you just normally play with other people, or?
Oh, it's called QA setting up an account for him. Maybe I don't know.
Aha! The QA guys, the most pro.
Oh man, that was really cool. I'm sorry, I know I was mid-stream, but whenever actually QA gets legendaries, they usually announce it on chat. They're like, dude, this is a legendary.
Everybody get in here. We're gonna chug a beer.
One guy
He's
got
a
2
legendary
legendaries
chest.
one day, and I called him a liar. I'm like, I don't believe it. There's no way.
That is awesome.
So yeah, to finish answering your question, so we get a lot of comments on that, and we want to get the stages where we feel like the game has reached a certain amount of features and a certain amount of fun, where we feel comfortable bringing it forward. And the reason why I went from pre-alpha to alpha was really when we did these major revamps on campaign. We reorganized the structure. We put in a leveling system from 1 to 50 that more fit with where we were trying to go. We're like, all right, we still have a lot of work to do, but things are settling. We have the iPower system in. We've revamped matchmaking. There's enough things in here that they're not done, but they're starting to feel like we want them to feel, and now we're moving to the next step. We really aren't going to go into beta or go into launch until we feel like all the features that we want are kind of at that state. You know,
so then,
pets still have some work to do in them. Inventory still has some work we talked about.
Right.
The item enhancement system right now is based on pre-iPower item setups, so it's not even as rewarding as we want it to be. And we had a cool vote about linear versus vertical, or horizontal versus vertical progression as an influence vote a while back, and that's going to influence a version of the item enhancement that we're working on here in the next couple of months. So there's a lot of features that we still want to see matured before we're going to go, okay, now we're in a beta, and then eventually, okay, now we feel comfortable launching.
So here's my follow-up question to that. And this is a question I've asked many a time as well, and it usually follows the one I just asked you. And it's basically like, so you have this ambiguous launch phase, which is great because it allows players to get in there to give you feedback. You basically have the largest QA session of all time. And it's awesome. You can implement feedback. You can make the game exactly what it wants to be. But then how do you drum up excitement when it's finally time to launch? There have been so many times that I have seen X game, like, you know, I'll be looking at, oh, what could we do a stream of next week? Wait, this game comes out next week? I played that 4 years ago. Like, it's a scenario where launching just becomes semantics almost.
It's interesting because I was a big Smite player for a while, right? I played Smite pretty hardcore.
That game was in beta for like a decade.
It was in beta for a long time. I was in alpha
I think it was like
for
3
a while,
years or
and
something.
then beta for a
Maybe.
while. I played it throughout the beta. I was one of the $30 pack buyers, and I think that when you were watching them go through that game, they revamped their UI 8 times. It felt like
I don't even recognize it anymore.
Yeah, it's changed
honestly.
so many times, and they were adding new heroes. Lord knows how many iterations that item system went through. I mean, they went from having items that were completely non-progressive to having like treed items just like they have in League of Legends. And so I think that when they are going through it, they're like, we have a good lot of players that love the game, they're playing the game, they're excited about the game. We're probably going to draw up some interest when we go to beta, or go to launch, but it was really more just acknowledging that now we're there.
Right.
Our players are here.
It always seems to be like a retrospective kind of deal.
Yeah, like players are there, they're having fun, they're enjoying it, and now we've gone to live. And Smite got coverage when they went to live because that was an exciting moment for a game that had been there for a while. And I think there are people that probably didn't. Wow, you're so close, you're trashed.
Yeah, I built this too close.
Probably didn't play the game because they were waiting for that announcement. So it's just really, it's a very, well, there it is. That
I've never seen that explode.
that
so
Cobalt
well done.
Flyer just like.
The Kobolds are such jerks.
Yeah, but you're definitely right, and we talk about that some when it comes to, you know, the impact of some of those We've been in early access for almost a year now, and we're not going to be out of early access anytime soon. We still have a ways to go before we're happy with it.
I do think free design tips with somebody who's never designed a video game. Here we go. I think that holding off a large amount of basically like, okay, we would patch the game now. So let's say we're 3 months away from the launch. We hold off the monthly patches or whatever for 3 months, and then you get a big content outpouring, because I think that gets, like, obviously you're going to get new players excited about, oh, this game is launching, here's a sweet deal on it, or here's I can get the sweet skin if I'm playing on the launch weekend or what have you. But
yeah,
like the people who have actually been playing for a long time, you know, they get excited about content patches. So.
Well, I mean, I think I'm hopeful, you know, any of our fans that are on the stream right now, and you yourself who played the game, we have had some pretty mega patches.
Yes,
like
they're awesome.
I mean, I've been in this industry for going on 9 years now, and not just in games that I've worked on, but in other games that I've played games for years. Some of the patches we've done, this is not to toot our own horn, it's actually honestly scarier than anything else. Like there was one patch we're getting ready to go, and like we're going through the video trying to explain all the stuff in it. Phil and Danny were doing it, and they're just like they get like 8 minutes into the video, and then they have to start just rattling off list of things, and the patch notes were 12 pages long. Like we published them, and they were just like in a Word doc, 12 pages. Wow. And I'm looking at this and going, like the QA effort, and sometimes people comment on that. They're like, you know, do you guys even have a QA team to even test your build?
Right.
And we're going, the volatility of the things that we're adding and the speed with which we're adding them, it's just it's really, really fun, but it's also very challenging.
Well, you can get away with that in the alpha and the pre-alpha too.
Right,
So.
and we don't want to slow down. Like that's
Right.
we want to get those things out to our players, even if you know the Frost build breaks progression and you're doing 100-something thousand damage.
I'm really bummed that when about the time when I tapered off with my apprentice is when they were the best.
Oh yeah, you should go look at some of the screenshots out there. Someone there was one screenshot where the guy had like a sequence of images, and it was just like the ogre with 1 point whatever million health walking down the lane, and you see him alive, and then like in 2 other shots he's dead. And you're just and the guy just like GG balance, you know. That was fun.
Let's move back to the social part of this game. One of my favorite parts about Dungeon Defenders 1, and I'm really glad to see you guys have embraced it with the social tavern. Something that's new in Dungeon Defenders 2 is like when you're not in a private tavern with yourself, or you get kicked out of a game, or it ends, you get shot back out to a social tavern, and it really feels like an alive and bustling tavern. It's very D&D. Like there's a barkeeper, there's all these people doing all these various things you can only do in the tavern. It's similar to a town or a city in an MMO or something like that, and it's a great social experience. So what are we going to see any additions to the tavern in the future? Don't die here.
Oh man.
And as well as that, like, what was kind of your mindset when you were being like, okay, we have this great tavern in Dungeon Defenders 1, how do we make that better?
Right. So to answer your first question, remember a little while ago I was talking about, or near the beginning of this stream, I was talking about Influence Week, where everyone in the studio put their pencils down and worked on whatever they wanted. And one of the things that came out of that was the PvP prototype. One of the things that won Influence Week was like the second highest voted thing of all the things we created was a completely redone social tavern.
Awesome.
So a level designer, a couple environment artists got together and were like, tavern's cool, but we think that the tavern should be outdoors and be a freaking town. And so they made this giant outdoor tavern where like there's an inside tavern in the social tavern. Like the social tavern is like streetways, there's a pirate ship you can go up onto, and it's really, really cool outdoor experience. We actually are working on that right now. We have people internally in the studio that are working on trying to finish up the social tavern's revamp. And so it's going to come out where you're in this big outdoor space, and it's a lot more expansive. And we find that that creates a different ambiance, a different atmosphere for players when they're engaged with each other. So that was kind of the inspiration, and we are definitely doing not just small modifications, like really doing it over again. And Phil just is...
I didn't know there was a bunch of goo in there.
That's melon juice. Right? He's the stubborn old man that won't leave.
I really like how much you're challenging yourself. You refuse to go on an easy level just for the sake of showing stuff. But that's really exciting to hear that a new tavern is coming in.
Yep.
And I think the thing that I've learned on this stream is it's completely multifaceted, the game, and all of the elements are receiving love in some form or another. But obviously you guys are human and only have so many people to work on stuff. So it's just like, okay, well, this is more important than this, and XYZ.
It's funny talking about non-PR type answers. We actually had a post to our community recently because there was some angst around some balancing things that we were doing, and Dan Haddad, our creative director, wrote a post at the end of it. He's like, and just by the way, if you'd like to remember that maybe we're human, like we're really trying, and it's not like we really care about our fans, and we want to make sure that we respond to them as fast as we can and react. But sometimes we do something like, we accidentally made Nightmare maybe too hard. We spent like 6 weeks on it, and we thought it was right, and it wasn't, and we scaled it back within about a day. And we had QA test it, and it went out. But it's kind of when you're making a game that has so many elements moving at the speed with which we're trying to move, it could definitely be a challenge.
I think the thing I've learned the most since I was younger and just a gamer and like, why don't they do this and do that, was from seeing where Diablo 3 started and how it is today, and seeing a complete overhaul. And there are even games that are much larger AAA games, Destiny, that have launched in a state that is like not that great.
I was trying not to mention the game.
It's something that, like, of all the trends that have happened in gaming for a while, there was like day one DLC patches or the hotness, and stuff like that. But I love seeing just this genuine, like, well, you bought our game, But we're just going to make it awesome, even though it wasn't perfect
Yeah.
when it launched. But your game is in a pretty sweet state already.
Oh, thank you.
So you guys can check it out, pick it up on Steam, PS4. We have about 50 minutes left, so if you have any questions for the developers, let us know by tweeting at IGN with the hashtag IGNPlaysLive, and we'll get those answered for you. So, do you have some kind of incentive to have people? This is an extremely specific question, but obviously this game is best played with friends.
Yeah.
And this is I play all my PC games with a group of like 4 friends on Ventrilo, who I've never met, except for one asked me to be the best man at his wedding. I was like, of course. It was a really cool
And
experience.
it'd be nice to meet you.
Yes, we met, and I was his best man on the same day. So how do you incentivize people?
It's a really cool experience.
Can we have some kind of? It was totally awesome. I have pictures, and the pants that he ordered me for like were way too tight. Just like comically, I couldn't even move my legs.
That's
But
great.
so how do you incentivize players who are into the game? Like, are there maybe ever going to be recruitment rewards or something like that?
Right. So I'll say first and foremost, I think that we have done. We have a lot of room for improvement in how our social features are matured right now. And we made the choice early on to go full in with Steam because that's the platform that we're on for PC. And so we have Steam Friends, Steam Party, which is a little bit takes a little bit of work to really get as flexible and as robust as some other party systems that are out there. Steam is how we're doing most of our out-of-game chat right now. But I don't think that I think there's a lot of places where we should fix and improve how you find players. We actually just about 2 or 3 months ago added better friend adding, so you can now add friends from the interface. But we don't have like you can't chat with people between servers right now, which we think is bad. If I want to message someone and say, hey, I'm playing here, I can go to the Steam's friends list, but I can't do that right in chat.
Right. It'd be sweet to have like a, I don't know, like a just a
whispering
chat room style, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah,
this
yeah.
is for like a guild or something
Yep.
like that. Speaking of guilds,
And I was about to go to that one next, and then figuring out ways that we can actually coalesce players together. The thing with the guilds is, we talked a lot about that because, especially when you're a free-to-play title, having good social components are a very good thing for your game to be healthy. They create stickiness and they create incentive to come back and play with the people that you have a relationship with. The challenge is that right now, there's not really much of a purpose to guilds if there's no reward system in place that makes guilds useful. We could just throw a guild system in and have no purpose for it, but everyone's going to be sitting there going, well, why belong in a guild? What's the point?
Right.
And then that'll be what we talk about for 3 months. So we've been actually actively right now, we're working on some systems that are directly aimed at supporting guilds.
Continue. I'm sorry. I was just blown away that didn't die. And I was like, there it goes. Okay, continue.
Yeah. He's trying. He's like,
he's in the zone.
Yes. So, for example, one of the big things that we're working on is score. And the reason why we're working on score is because we want to do leaderboards. So
Awesome.
We have right now feats in the game. They feel a little purposeless because they don't have much of an impact for a while. They give experience. We had to take that out. The reason why, and feats to clarify, are repeatable actions that give you some kind of reward in a round. So build 7 things within like 10 seconds or whatever. The next thing that we're working on at the moment is a thing called badges. And badges are goals that you can achieve every round 1 time. So it might be like survive round 1 with no damage to your cores, or beat the map without ever dying, whatever they may be. And we can combine those 2 things to add modifiers into the point system so that you can have score. And that's how you create variable score, because for us, if we base score off of, like, say, how many enemies are killed, well, it's always the same amount of enemies, so there's not going to be much variableness there. Once score comes into play, we can do things like leaderboards, which I know everyone really wants to have, a way that in a cooperative game there's at least some kind of competition. And what our thought process right now, this is all very, very early, so all this could change very dramatically, but our thought process is once we get score in, then we may be able to create some cool reward loops around people who are organized in groups having collective scores. You kind of think of like you have Clash of Clans has like that group leaderboard where everyone has a value and the total value is the clan's value, and then people every month get something based on that. So whether we do something like that or probably our own spin on something similar, we want to use score potentially as a good incentive to form as guilds. You and I are in a guild together. We are trying to get the best score on Town Market for the month. Total. So my score is on Town Market, all 10 of us. And if we have the best collective guild score for Town Market, then we get like an exclusive pack of 400 gems and
that would be awesome. Or just, also just having like kind of the being able to brag.
That's
it. What I always
special
find
titles or something that you can acquire.
Yes, exactly. What I find hilarious about World of Warcraft rating, it's stuck around. It's been around for 10 years now. It's extremely it's just a part of gaming that the PC community knows and loves and XYZ. But the whole thing wouldn't have worked without a DPS meter, which still is not even in the game. Like, it's still not even supported. So I think competition, especially cooperative competition, and obviously we talked about PvP, and there's going to be obviously competition there. That's just kind of the innate nature of player versus player.
Yes.
But in a PvE cooperative game, I think healthy competition, being able to see how well you're doing based on other players is great.
Yeah.
And actually, that's something I kind of wanted to ask about, because I know you have like a, here's how much damage you did. Is that totally accurate, or is that just kind of a placeholder
Oh, the
post-game?
summary screen?
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's broken.
Yeah, I thought so. I knew
Oh.
I was doing way more than my friends, but it was not telling me
Yeah,
that.
summary screen is all sorts of busted. And the reason why it's funny, it did work for a while, and then as we were adding new features, it just broke horribly. And we've thought about spending time working it and improving it, but we know that that summary screen that's in there right now is all being ripped out and replaced. And we wanted to replace it around the concept of score. So we've been kind of holding back on doing that work so that we can finish the score stuff first and then add it. And this is, this is a great touch point on what you were asking us earlier about early access and being an alpha. It's like, we don't have, our summary screen doesn't work. There's a core feature that we're talking about that we really want to have done. So even though a lot of the things that you touch, you're like, man, this game feels finished, we're going, no, like, there's real things that are core to how we want this game to play that we haven't gotten to yet.
Another really cool part of being a player in early access is you have the opportunity to influence the game.
Yeah.
We'll get into a discussion about causation here in the multiverse, but basically, like, if, let's say you never got early access and you were the one who made a video that brought the developers into a whole new train of thought about a certain feature of the game, that feature would never be in the game. So it's something that I've always loved to see, is like whenever I do a really well thought out post, and I used to do this when I was like maybe 18 or 19, I would like spend like 2 hours on a forum post about something I felt really strongly about.
Right.
And parts I'd be like, why do I, I'm not getting paid for this, why do I even
trying.
care?
He's trying.
I
was closer.
That was.
I just keep forgetting that when the subcore falls, it opens up the lane inside, and then I get surprised when I open it up. I see guys come out. I'm like, damn it, did not build for these guys here.
That is awesome. But you get to a point where like you feel as some kind of ownership over the game, just because like you helped it become what it was, and now the reward is you get to play it in its awesome state.
It's an incredibly accurate summary screen.
Waves.
It's when you use the word influence, I thought you were going to talk about our influence system for a second. Are you familiar with the influence system?
I'm not. Was that in? Has it been in for a long time?
Though the visibility of it back then, the surfacing was kind of poor. We've actually improved our launcher, and now it's a little surface better. So we have this really cool system that we developed. It was specifically because of the philosophy you're talking about in early access. We're going to have the system available for forever. And the way it works, every day when you log into the game, you get an influence point. And if you log into the website, you can get another one. So you can get up to 2 a day. And you accumulate these points. It's kind of a daily thing. And we do votes to our community about specific decisions, and you can use your influence points to put a vote together, or to influence the vote.
Wow. So
the more you're participating in the game world, the more you're playing consistently.
So you have kind of like a roadmap scenario?
Well, so like a good example of this is, we were talking earlier off the string about Wipe Again. We had this thing on PC where we basically completely restructured the way stats work in the game, and the way that we did that programmatically required us to wipe a subset of things. We had to wipe gear, we had to wipe hero level, and there was no way that we could programmatically transfer the data that was there to the new structure. So we were like, all right, we have to do this wipe thing, and we're going to give people really cool rewards from it. The thing was that we didn't have to wipe everything. We only needed to wipe like 60% of the stuff that was in the game, but we knew people in the forums were talking about going to do a full wipe. So we put an influence vote up. We said, all right.
I do remember seeing that, actually.
Yeah. Either we're going to do a full wipe or we're going to do a partial wipe. It's up to the community on what you want to do. And the vote was live for about a week or so. A huge volume of people threw points at it, and the full wipe won by a pretty good margin, actually.
That's a better political system than the U.S. has. That's impressive.
Well, it's funny. I love this one. There was an influence vote we did a while back around horizontal versus vertical progression. And there was actually a lot of debate internally about whether we wanted to even do this vote, because it was a little bit more of a game design type concept, and we knew it was going to be hard for some casual gamers to understand what we were trying to do. But we put this vote up, and man, like, people started creating hashtags around Team Enhancer versus Team and Crafter, and they got very political. So there were collections of players that had massive amounts of points that were like trying to plan when they were going to dump
Oh
their
my
points.
goodness.
I'm not exaggerating.
That is hilarious.
And what was awesome about this happened actually for 2 votes. What was awesome about this is as the vote was getting close to the end, like the last day, last couple hours, it started swapping back and forth.
Oh no.
So like Enchanter would go up, and then Crafter would go up, and you're just going like I remember being in the office when it was happening, and we're on Skype like chatting in the office, going, what's gonna win? We don't even know. And someone like our community manager is, no, this one's gonna win because I know there is a collection of about 30 players that are waiting for 5 minutes to dump all their points.
That is the list. So they're like, it's kind of like a snipe eBay bid. Like you don't really want
it was exactly like that was, and it happened. Like at the very end, the one camp sniped in a whole ton of points. The other camp also had a group of snipers, but they didn't have as much points. And it ended within like a couple hundred. They had, like the vote had like 10,000 votes between the two camps. It was a huge vote, but it ended within a couple hundred points. It was really, really close.
That's got to be very difficult. I mean, that obviously shows that there's a huge disparity in your community between one and the other. So at that point, maybe you just take that and go, maybe we'll think about this.
No, well, that was exactly what you're talking about is kind of what this gave us. And that's why I really like using the influence system when we can, because first off, it allows the voice to be reflected by your participation. You know, if you're a player that plays a lot, you understand the game, you should maybe have a little bit of a louder or a different voice than someone. And it's not based on time. It's not like someone that has 700 hours versus someone that has 30. It's just someone that's been logging in every day and participating. Active. We didn't want it to be a time index. But when we did that vote, it's like, okay, yes, we're going to do more horizontal progression. That's what won. But we're going to actually probably think about both because there was such discussion around this topic and so close of a conversation that, man, this is a big thing for us to think about. And that was, I don't really, in my personal experience, I haven't seen a system that gives that kind of information and perspective to developers quite like that. You can do surveys, but having it be public, having that debate, having that, politicking, people taking it that seriously kind of tells
lobbying with their points or something.
Yeah, you see, and that was, it's not just the lobbying of the points, it's lobbying each other. Like they were actually trying to, we were just sitting back and going, you guys sell the features. We're going to just watch what happens. And you have people going, no, you don't understand. You know, if you're this type of player, right now you may not want this, but this is what you're going to want. You don't get it. And the other people are going, oh, no, you don't understand. Like, if we have to collect these kind of stuff, then they can do this thing. And, like, they're debating the core aspects of kind of what we were thinking about when we were thinking about this feature and how
it's also just got to be pretty awesome to have a community that is that invested in your game. That's definitely a blessing.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Well, if you want to get into Dungeon Defenders 2, not necessarily in that capacity at first, hopefully, unless you're just really looking for a good political simulator,
or if you want to make videos and maybe change new features.
I did that completely ignorantly. I had no idea. I was just making it so my viewers could break the system. But you can check it out on Steam. You can check it out on PS4 come September 29th. There's going to be a bunch of different packages you can pick up. You can pay right now to get into what is alpha, and then I believe, is it going to be pre-alpha on PS4, or is that going to be okay?
Yeah, pre-alpha on PS4.
But when the game does launch, it'll be free to play. The monetization will be done well.
And by the way, on PS4 is a great thing. It is going to be split screen couch co-op.
I saw that. That is super exciting.
I really wish PSN had some snags going on earlier today. We were going to play that today on the stream. Split screen couch co-op is a blast, and that is going to come on the PC. So we're working actually right now on. It's going to take us a little bit because the UI complication is real. But we're going to be transferring that over to PC, and you'll be able to play.
That's super cool. I'm really excited because I can grab the controller out of my friend's hand and then drop all them on it.
That's right. Or when they're in a menu taking too long, you can sit there and like, hey, come on.
Good stuff. All right, we are coming to the closing moments of the stream. But
if Phil's going to make it further than he ever has.
I think so.
This is exciting. Let's see. We're on wave 2 of 7.
Look at he's just like, forget it. I'm going to turtle the core. I'm just done as much DPS as possible.
This is basically kind of like an onslaught mode because you're fighting the clock even though you have a set number of waves, which is exciting. So yeah, I can speak from personal experience. I don't get to do this on every single stream because I can only play so many games. I only have so many hours after work. But Dungeon Defenders 2, totally being a Dungeon Defenders 1 and just somebody who enjoys...
Kill the Wither Beast!
Wow,
kill the Wither Beast! No, the Wither Beast is sitting right there debuffing all your towers.
Kill the stream now.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, kill it before I lose.
You're not going to make it again.
Ogre
You're not going to make... Oh,
yeah. I was close to that
So
time.
close. You just keep challenging yourself. I really like the way you play.
Yeah.
You easily could have just gone to campaign mode and one-shot everything.
So.
Yeah. The Wither Beast got you on that one. That thing is... Oh, man.
So if you guys are a fan of action RPGs or or tower defense games or all of the above, I highly encourage you to check it out. It's a lot of fun. There's a very good community that's willing to teach you, but it's also pretty good, easy to pick up. I like the way that you ease players into some of the intricacies, and I'm sure that's something you've.
Yeah, a lot of focus testing. We're in a college town, so it allows us to pull in a lot of college.
Let's have pizza and beer night, and it's
we pull them in and have them play the game and take notes, and it helps us tune.
Okay, so what the closing thoughts for you guys? What can the community expect, as well as new players, in the coming months in terms of content and updates? What are some of the big bullet points that you at least hope to have out in the next 6 months or so?
Yeah, so the new boss fight is definitely one of them. Getting what we're calling Carl right now in and finishing that campaign loop and having those 2 versions of the maps, that's a huge win for us. The Social Tavern update is another big one. This whole tavern being completely revamped, seeing that new visualization there. We're working on item enhancement being updated, so adding a new way of being able to enhance items and how we're going to do that. We haven't announced, but that's definitely something in the works. We're really hoping to get scoring in the next 6 months.
Competition.
Possibly
Say my name.
leaderboards. Yeah, and that's on our roadmap to come in really soon. We're working on the inventory adjustments that we saw for PC. We have split screen and controller support, which I know everyone really wants controller support on PC. So that's a really, really big deal for us. And, there's a lot of changes that we're doing that are midstream that are going to continue to kind of evolve when it comes to adding more builds into the game and adding, we're revamping the way you level your character right now. So that's going to be coming in the next patch, adding that item diversity in, really trying to make those RPG mechanics allow choice as you level up, so that when you get to the end game, it's not really about just farming for power. It's about farming for which things of power that you want to try.
And choosing. And
yeah, I mean, it's like in Diablo 3 where you're like, oh, I found this thing that magnifies my Hydra on
maybe
the
I'll
wizard.
Completely change my
try
build.
the Hydra now. I haven't done that before.
That's very exciting. It sounds like a very exciting time to be playing Dungeon Defenders 2. You can pick it up on Steam. You can also pick it up on PS4 September 29th. Philip, thank you so much for trying your hardest.
I did.
And Brad, thank you so much for answering all of the questions.
Yes.
For all things Dungeon Defenders 2, make sure you keep it right here on IGN. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is James Duggan, and welcome to IGN Plays. I am here with Philip Asher and Brad Logston of Trendy, and they are going to show us Dungeon Defenders 2, which has been in early access on Steam for some time and is coming to PlayStation 4 quite soon. That is coming on the 29th of September, so we're very excited for that.
Really soon.
Some problems with PSN right now. Hopefully the entire internet doesn't go down because you won't be able to see our pretty faces. So what are we doing right here? We're in a private tavern. We're just messing around with some totems or some
towers.
Some towers.
Just checking them out, seeing what my DPS is.
So
you said your favorite tower is Earthshatter Tower. So
yes, I love it. Let me look at it.
doing
It's
okay.
gorgeous. And the giant crystal spike comes out of the ground. So if you guys don't know about this game, it is a tower defense game. You play as a class. It's the second Dungeon Defenders.
That's right.
We
That's
all
the
remember
2.
the first. Yes, yes. The 2 isn't just thrown on there for giggles.
Someone should do that one day. They should make a game and just call it
the sequel.
game of whatever the second.
Well, George
It'd be
Lucas
like
did it with Star Wars in the
Right.
70s. Yep. Okay, so we're going to be taking questions on Twitter. If you tweet at IGN with a hashtag IGNPlaysLive, you can ask these fine gentlemen all your questions about the game, whether you're new or you're a total veteran, and you're going to ask those balanced questions that you were dying to know about. And I have some.